Good evening. A public appeal from police tonight, hoping someone can help identify a man wanted in connection with a double homicide in North York on Tuesday.
Police have now released images of the man wanted in the shooting and are hoping someone will lead investigators to him. CTV's Mike Walker is live at the scene and joins us with more details. Mike.
Well, Nathan, Michelle, homicide investigators say that the suspect they are looking for is one of the shooters in this incident, but at this point can't say whether he caused the deaths of both victims. Flowers are left in the housing complex parking lot where two men were fatally shot Tuesday afternoon. Homicide investigators releasing these images of a man believed to be 18 years old or in his early 20s, who they believe was involved in the double shooting.
We cannot confirm whether this third individual was responsible for the death of Ibrahim or Deshaun, but we do know he was one of the shooters involved.
Gunshots rang out shortly after 2 Tuesday afternoon at the housing complex in the Jane in Driftwood area after police say there was an altercation between three men. One man was pronounced dead at the scene, the other died in hospital. The victims have been identified as 26-year-old Ibrahim Handoule and 27-year-old Deshaun Walters.
We believe there may have been some interaction, they may have known each other, and again, that's why we're here today. You know, as police, we try to do everything we can to try and figure out exactly what happened.
It's still not clear what led to the altercation. Investigators have recovered two firearms that they believe were used in the deadly double shooting, but did not say who may have used them.
And we're working to determine the sequence of the events, including who fired which shots during the altercation.
Investigators say both victims had ties to this neighborhood. Police have increased their presence in the community in the wake of this double homicide. A command post remains here as investigators continue to canvass the area for witnesses and information to help them identify their suspect. At this point in the investigation, police can't say whether their suspect would be facing murder charges. They believe someone in this community knows who he is or where he may be, and they are appealing for them to come forward. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Meanwhile, community leaders in North York were speaking out today.
At issue, the gun violence and how to tackle it. CTV's Beth McDonnell is live tonight with more. Beth.
Michelle, community members held an emergency press conference because they say they've had enough of the shootings. They want solutions and action now. It's been plain scary across parts of York and North York this September. From the shooting killing of 15-year-old Mario Giddings in a plaza on Trethewey to the deadly double shooting of two men on Driftwood and the apartment building entrance that got riddled with bullets on Chalk Farm, seriously injuring a teenager.
They don't have any love for us, they don't have any protection for us, they don't have any concern concerning us.
Among residents of the high-rise, there is anger, fear, and frustration. They feel warnings about people around their building leading up to the shooting Thursday night were downplayed. And since the shooting, no leaders have come to show support. All connected to the gun violence, they say. Many tenants in the Black Creek and Weston areas are living in substandard conditions with pest infestations without enough opportunities.
We do have a few programs here at the hub to help a few people, but we just need more mentorship, like as she said, and we need more business opportunities and jobs for the kids to be busy and not in the streets.
This call, this coming together of community members, an urgent plea to find solutions and take action. Between those who own housing, politicians from all levels, the local business community, and police.
Their presence must be felt at the locations. They can use also there as a part of their patrol route to diminish such situation, because when we see the police around, sometimes also calm down situations.
There's one key element missing, and that's the families. And we need to have the families involved to be part of those policies and decision making so that the programs implemented will reflect who we are.
To have their communities be safe and thrive. The MPP for the area did attend this press conference, as well as a representative from the local MP's office, along with two neighborhood police officers. Reporting live on Chalk Farm Drive, I'm Beth McDonnell. Nathan, Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. And still to come, police have identified the victims in a double shooting yesterday in Keswick. They've also laid murder charges against two men. We'll have those details in moments.
But first, let's have a look outside. Another gorgeous September evening. Nice, clear conditions, and we have the warmth. If you like today, There's more where that came from. CTV's Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. Jess.
It really stays beautiful to wrap up our day. So if you do have outdoor plans, maybe you're trying to get in those last few barbecues or patio days, it's a great night to do so. We're looking at a more southeasterly wind right now. It'll become more northerly as we head through the overnight and into the day tomorrow. Even with that northerly flow to the wind, it doesn't do much to cool things down. We're still sitting in the mid to upper 20s, feeling in the upper 20s, low 30s, and that really doesn't change. This rinse and repeat forecast that we've had continues as we head into the day tomorrow. Through the islands, we're at 23, through Pearson 25, so the humidex is still there. It's not as much of a factor as it was yesterday, but it is still noticeable and really comfortable. We're heading in towards the evening at 16. It's staying above seasonal. If you're a fan of the cooler fall weather, that is coming. If you're a fan of the warmer fall weather, we still have that, and it will still be there in the long range. Coming up, I'll break it all down. Right now, I'll send things back over to Michelle.
Thank you, Jess. Still ahead, police charge 5 people with allegedly scamming elderly Ontarians out of millions through legal claims on their homes. CTV's John Woodward will have more on the charges and the impact of these scams on the victims.
Police in York Region have identified the 2 men shot and killed yesterday in a park in Keswick.
They've also arrested and charged 2 men in the shooting. CTV's John Musselman has the latest.
It was a shooting that had residents in this quiet Keswick neighborhood reeling. 2 men gunned down in this park on Wednesday morning. Both died at the scene. York Regional Police have now identified them as 21-year-old Riley McDonald of Keswick and 39-year-old Mark Sutcliffe. His address has not been disclosed by police. The 2 accused men identified as 19-year-old John McKay and 21-year-old Ethan Pashek McNeil, both of Barrie. They are both charged with first-degree murder. Police are not releasing a possible motive, but say the victims and the accused are known to each other.
Investigators believe that there are no outstanding suspects and that this was a targeted incident. There is no threat to public safety.
Residents reported hearing multiple shots fired inside the park. A stray bullet struck the side of a pickup truck parked in a nearby driveway.
You never think that it's going to happen in your small town. It's very, you feel safe here. I let my kids go to the park unsupervised, and my neighbor on the other side caught a stray bullet, and that's not him. His car caught a stray bullet, and that's terrifying.
Police say this is an ongoing investigation. Anyone with information is asked to call York Regional Police or Crime Stoppers. John Musselman, CTV News.
Police in Waterloo are asking for help finding a family of 3 from Kitchener who've been missing for weeks. 44-year-old Hohak, 43-year-old Trin, and their 5-year-old son Alex have not been seen since September 1st. Hohak is described as 5'4" and 120 pounds with short black hair, brown eyes, and a goatee. Trin is 5'2" and 110 pounds with long black hair. Few other details have been released about their disappearance. Anyone with information is asked to contact Waterloo Police.
Thanksgiving is still weeks away, so you may not have started thinking about the food.
But at the Daily Bread Food Bank, it's top of mind. The organization launched its annual Thanksgiving food drive today. CTV's Sean Leathong was there and joins us live with more details. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, they've been doing this for 40 years, but because the food bank is becoming so much more needed, so many more people are food insecure in this city, they're asking for more help than ever.
Ramping up to Thanksgiving, the need to feed the city of Toronto has never been more urgent.
Pre-pandemic, we were serving across the city about 60,000 client visits per month. That number last month was 350,000, and that is just Toronto.
Neil Hetherington, CEO of the Daily Bread Food Bank, says it took 35 years to serve 1 million customers. Now,
we have now reached a milestone of 2 million visits just in 6 months. We will be at 4 million visits by the end of this year.
And now 1 in 10 people in the city of Toronto is food insecure. So they're asking for help for Daily Bread's annual Thanksgiving food drive. The goal is to raise $4.6 million and 200,000 pounds of food by October 31st. And in order to help donations roll in, Purelator rolled out 35,000 red bags in neighborhoods throughout the city.
If you've received a bag, please fill it with non-perishable food items and leave it on your doorstep. This Saturday, September 21st, our Purelator drivers will be in your neighborhood to collect the food and safely deliver it to Daily Bread.
And Toronto Fire is jumping in, helping to make donations easy.
We will support their annual Thanksgiving drive with our 85 fire halls across the city, hosting donation boxes throughout the campaign.
We're hopeful that you'll drop off any non-perishable food item at any fire hall throughout the city. It'll go to the Daily Bread Food Bank.
Big goals to meet growing demand with a push to help those who need it most.
Now, of course, they are also accepting donations in cash, so you can go to the Daily Bread Food Bank website to do that. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leetong. Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Transit officials and police are reminding passengers to be aware of their surroundings after a woman was hit and injured by a train at Long Branch GO Station on Tuesday. Investigators say an express train on the Lakeshore East Line was bypassing the station when the 46-year-old woman was hit. She was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. Police say the Traffic Services Unit is looking into just what took place, and it's always important to stay back from the platform lines and be aware of approaching trains. Metrolinx echoing that advice, calling Tuesday's incident an important and sobering reminder of the importance of rail safety.
Meanwhile, there were major disruptions on the TTC during the morning rush today. Service was suspended on Line 2 between St. George and Broadview stations for about an hour because of oil on the tracks. The CTV News chopper was over Danforth and Broadview and spotted large crowds spilling onto the road to try and catch a shuttle bus. The TTC says the issue happened because lubricant for rail joints made its way to the top of the tracks.
A new report from a group that advocates for the building industry warns new home sales have hit historic lows in the GTA. The Building Industry and Land Development Association shared the figures from last month provided by Altus Group. They show 464 new homes were sold, combining condos and single-family homes. That figure represents a 46% drop from August of 2023, and it's 73% below the 10-year average. Amid wider affordability issues, Build urged governments to look at lowering taxes and fees, saying they add an average of $355,000 to the cost of a single-family home.
Also today, the city released a progress report on its housing action plan. It showed Toronto exceeding the province's housing supply target by 51% in 2023, with well over 31,000 new housing starts. It also highlighted efforts to preserve hundreds of affordable rental units and assists more than 2,200 households at risk of eviction. At the same time, the city report calls for billions in financing from other levels of government to address what officials call a deepening housing crisis.
Turn yourselves in. That's the message from the OPP to 3 alleged fraudsters they say are behind an elaborate scam that targeted the elderly across Ontario.
As John Woodward reports, videos show one of the accused's lavish lifestyle as police believe the amount of money at stake was in the tens of millions.
He's owned this home since the 50s.
But Carl Hoffman lost that home in Bowmanville after several interactions with people who said they were selling home equipment like water purifiers, but appeared to have other plans, says his daughter-in-law, Melissa Irons.
The impact on our family is tremendous.
Irons says Hoffman was vulnerable. He had a brain aneurysm that left him with short-term memory loss. He's among 200 victims whose cases were pursued by the Ontario Provincial Police in an operation called Project Nettle.
The victims were deceived, misled, and unaware of what they were getting into.
Detective Constable Aaron Fraser said the victims signed on to contracts for renovations or home services like thermostats or water filters, but then found legal claims called no-sees on their properties worth much more. Some victims got mortgages to pay and were then foreclosed on.
With our, kind of subsection, I think we could say over $20 million in the fraudulent no-sees.
No-see is short for Notice of Security Interest. A recent W5 episode showed how often they are being abused to the tune of $1 billion across Ontario. Earlier this year, the provincial legislature unanimously voted to void all of them.
We have decided to move forward with complete abolition.
Officers are now charging 5 people in the case and issuing warrants for the arrest of 3 of them. 23-year-old Anas Ayub, 33-year-old Mohammed Wakar Afzal, and 28-year-old Mohammed Wasik Afzal.
It's a nice car, damn.
Ayub seen here in social media videos showing off fast cars and a luxurious lifestyle. His lawyer didn't return an email seeking comment. Hoffman was 81 when he died. While the no-sees are gone, a mortgage he signed to pay them still survives.
They did take his house. Currently, it is not in Carl's name still to this day.
Hoffman's family is still fighting in court to get it back. John Woodward, CTV News.
While the results won't change the balance of power at Queen's Park, voting is underway for a provincial by-election outside Kingston. The Bay of Quinte riding will be choosing a new MPP after Todd Smith stepped down. He resigned last month to take on a role in the private sector. Belleville City Councillor Tyler Alsop is running for the PCs. Fellow Belleville Councillor Sean Kelly is on the ballot for the Liberals. The NDP is fielding local school board trustee Amanda Robertson, and the Greens have respiratory therapist Lori Borthwick. Polls are open until 9 p.m. and we'll have the latest results on CTV News at 11:30.
The province shared an update on its financial situation today. Among the highlights, the deficit is down. Ontario's credit rating is up. The update outlines the province's books for the fiscal year that ended in March. The Ford government highlighted an 8.9% increase in healthcare spending and a 7.6% increase to the education sector, as well as a nearly 23% spike in spending on infrastructure investments. The deficit stood at $600 million, down from $1.3 billion as forecast in the 2023 budget.
This lower than projected deficit was driven by a combination of higher revenues and, of course, lower interest on debt. In fact, our interest on debt relative to revenues is at levels the province has not seen since the 1980s. This is a very good thing for taxpayers in Ontario.
The finance minister says Ontario's credit rating has been upgraded to AA, the first increase in nearly 2 decades, and Ontario can now borrow funds more efficiently at the lowest cost for any province.
In Ottawa, the NDP confirmed today it will join the Bloc Québécois in opposing the Conservatives' non-confidence motion against the Liberal government. The move eliminates the possibility of a snap election, at least for now. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister made some changes today after one of his key cabinet ministers stepped down.
I have informed the Prime Minister of a resignation as Canada's Transport Minister and Quebec Lieutenant, effective immediately.
Pablo Rodriguez has left the Liberal caucus to pursue the Quebec Liberal Party leadership. He will sit as an independent MP until next January, when his campaign begins. Hours after the announcement, Treasury Board President Anita Anand was sworn in as the new Transport Minister. Public Services and Procurement Minister Jean-Yves Duclos will become the government's new Quebec lieutenant.
We have the results of a CTV News Nanos poll where Canadians were asked about the perceived impact of immigration. CTV's Camille Karamali has the results.
Polling results from last year showed a majority of Canadians were in favor of accepting more immigrants to Canada. Now they've become the minority, with support plummeting. Nanos polling shows more than 70% of those surveyed said they're in favor of reducing immigration until housing becomes more affordable, compared to just 59% who felt the same last year. And when it comes to beliefs on how immigration impacts the economy, 40% believe reducing the number of immigrants would make the economy stronger, while 29% believe the economy would become weaker by limiting the number of newcomers.
It's sort of gotten out of control in the last couple of years.
The poll comes as Ottawa has decided to reduce the number of international students coming to Canada by 35% this year and by another 10% next year. Migrant advocacy groups say the public is misinformed.
There has been lies, disinformation, xenophobia, and racism that have pervaded most of the political and economic conversations in the country. And those are now resulting in increasing anti-immigrant sentiment.
They argue it's not just immigrants solely responsible for the housing shortage, but high interest rates, increasing building costs, and government red tape that's slowing down home construction. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
In the Middle East, Hezbollah is vowing retaliation, and Israel is signaling a readiness for war. The latest escalation follows a deadly covert operation this week that involved handheld devices. CTV's Genevieve Beauchemin reports.
Lebanese soldiers blew up suspicious devices, fearing unexploded pagers and walkie-talkies might go off. But it was 2 sonic booms from Israeli warplanes in the sky over Beirut that shook buildings today. This as Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah was speaking, accusing Israel of breaking all conventions and laws of crossing a red line. He vowed retribution would come. Nasrallah acknowledged Hezbollah had been dealt a severe blow. But militants fired missiles and drones at Israel again today. At least 8 people were wounded. Hezbollah says this will continue until the war against Hamas ends. Israel made no mention of the wireless device attacks, but said it had entered a new phase and struck Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon.
Israel is responding with force to this aggression by Hezbollah. We will use all means necessary to restore security to our northern border and to safely return our citizens to their homes.
The UN has urged both sides to back away from all-out combat, warning that the safety of civilians is paramount. The sabotaged wireless devices containing powerful explosives were reportedly handed to Hezbollah operatives months ago. But the explosions triggered remotely also injured civilians, including children and elderly people. They also shattered any sense of security. Who can feel safe in this situation, asks this man. When I heard what happened, I left my cell phone and my motorcycle and walked away.
The World Health Organization expressed its concern, saying the already fragile healthcare system in Lebanon is now further disrupted. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
An iconic photograph of Sir Winston Churchill is returning to Canada nearly 3 years after it was stolen from a hotel in the nation's capital.
It is now with great joy and anticipation that we look forward to the return of the Roaring Lion to its rightful place on the walls of the Fairmont Château Laurier in Ottawa, where it will once again be admired by visitors around the world.
A ceremony was held today at the Canadian Embassy in Rome, where Italian police handed over the famous portrait. It was shot by Ottawa photographer Yusuf Karsh in 1941, after the British leader had addressed the Canadian Parliament. The picture hung for years in the hotel where Karsh had a studio, but staff realized in 2022 that it had been stolen and replaced with a copy. The original was sold at auction to an unsuspecting Italian lawyer who took action once he found out it was stolen.
The Carabinieri confirmed me that the portrait I bought was the stolen one, and so at that time I immediately decided to return it to the Château Laurier, because I think that if Mr. Karsh donated it to the hotel, it means that it really wanted it to stay there.
The portrait is the most reproduced photograph of Churchill. It was recovered after a 2-year search involving Canadian, British, and Italian authorities. A 43-year-old man from Powassan, Ontario, faces multiple charges.
Coming up, it's what Canadian winters are all about. Frozen lakes, fun on skates and snowmobiles, but the beloved pastimes may not be as safe as they once were. New research suggests warming winters are affecting the actual quality of the ice.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, auto theft continues to drive up the cost of car insurance premiums, and depending on the kind of vehicle you have, your rates could more than double. One man was just hit with a $1,500 insurance surcharge. I'll have that story. That's just ahead.
And yet another warm day here in the city of Toronto and across the GTA. The hotspots still holding on in areas in northern Ontario, but we are going to see a trend towards seasonal as we head in towards next week. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast as we settle in towards the official start of the fall season this weekend.
The insurance industry had to pay out more than $1.5 billion due to auto theft last year, and it's driving up costs for everyone.
Depending on the kind of vehicle you drive, you could see your insurance premiums more than double unless you install an anti-theft device. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Nathan and Michelle, before you buy any car, you should always check with your insurance company to see how much it will cost to insure it. Vehicles at risk of being stolen are now seeing huge hikes in premiums or additional surcharges.
I find it unfair. I find it excessive.
Cliff Whiting of Ancaster has a 2020 Toyota Highlander. He was shocked when his insurance company, CAA, told him he must install an anti-theft device, and if he doesn't, he'll have to pay a high theft risk surcharge of $1,500 a year. Whiting says he's never made a claim, and the surcharge would more than double his premiums.
I just have a hard time with a 144% increase when nothing's happened.
CAA told CTV News its customers can reduce or eliminate the surcharge by implementing additional layers of protection, such as the professional installation of an aftermarket immobilizer or installing and using a steering wheel lock like the Club. Many insurance companies are adding surcharges to vehicles at higher risk of being stolen.
They're introducing them on vehicles that are newer, 2019 to 2024. So if your consumer, for example, had bought a 2017 Highlander, they very likely wouldn't have been subject to that additional $1,500 surcharge.
Rates.ca says one way to save money on insurance is to drive an older vehicle. The Dodge Ram is also considered a target for thieves. The 2024 Dodge Ram is 61% more expensive to insure than the 2018 model. You can also save money on insurance by choosing a vehicle that's not considered at high risk for theft. The 2024 Volkswagen Jetta is only 6% more expensive to insure than the 2018 model. You should check a vehicle's insurance rates before you buy, and if you're facing increases, you can shop around.
There are a lot of insurance companies that aren't surcharging these models or levying these surcharges that might require you to get an immobilizer or whatever the case may be.
In Whiting's case, he's able to reduce the surcharge by $500 by using a steering wheel lock, but he hasn't decided if he will spend up to $1,500 more on an anti-theft system to try and avoid the surcharge completely. And auto theft has dropped slightly in the Toronto area this year due to an increase in policing efforts. CAA also says manufacturers need to do more to make their vehicles harder to steal. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, we still have all of autumn ahead of us, but when winter rolls around, a new study is advising a new level of caution around lake ice. Researchers at York University say warmer winters mean the ice forming on our bodies of water isn't as safe as it once was. They compared clear black ice, which is more dense and forms in consistently colder temperatures, to white ice, which forms with more air bubbles and smaller ice crystals. The authors say 10 centimeters of black ice is considered the golden rule for safety, but that may not be the case with white ice.
Because of climate change, the ice core is less likely to be black ice, so we advise that 20 centimeters, if your ice core is made of white ice conditions, should be your minimum before you go out on a lake or a river.
White ice forms when temperatures go above 0 degrees Celsius in the winter, when it rains, or when snow becomes slush on the existing ice on the lake's surface.
Now you know. Nobody's really studied this. And so, yeah, we have warmer winters. And, hey, look at that. We're well into September. We're having really good summery weather, too.
We are. And this is something we have to start thinking about. We're still in that summer mindset, obviously, looking ahead to winter. And we'll keep an eye on the forecast. But for now, it is still really, really warm outside. By no means is it record-breaking, but we're still... It's nice out there. Like, it's T-shirt weather still. You talked about flip-flops earlier. You can still go out in your flip-flops for at least the next couple of days. As we step in towards the beginning of next week, things do shift a little bit, but honestly, it is just towards seasonal. But it was a gorgeous day from start to finish. We saw that kind of sweet spot with the heat that, you know, not too hot, not too cold, with the right amount of wind, and it really started early on this morning. We saw some light cloud cover to get the day going, and a little bit of light fog out there. Some fog advisories early on this morning in parts of southern Ontario, but it burned off relatively quickly. But in that kind of few minutes before all the fog is gone, it is a really, really cool view from just above the clouds from our chopper early on this morning. As we step into our late afternoon, early evening, it is quite beautiful outside temperature-wise. If you're still playing sports outside, you want to get out, get your steps in, it is great because you don't quite need all those fall layers just yet. We're sitting at 25. It feels like 27, so the humidex is not so much of a factor, but it's still there. And the hot spots throughout the week really have been through northern Ontario, as that ridge in the jet stream that separates the cooler air and the warmer air remains really, really high. So everybody in Ontario is experiencing this warm-up. As we head into this evening, sitting at 16, we should be at 11 again. The only place that is kind of close to seasonal is going to be our friends out towards Bancroft, maybe through Waterloo region, but everybody's still sitting above where we should be. Into the day tomorrow, still really nice out there, not quite as hot. We'll be at 25, kind of feeling like 28, so still warm, but we're not looking at that 30 humidex likely as we head into the afternoon, thanks to a more northerly flow to the winds. We aren't seeing much in the way of active weather, at least for today and for tomorrow, obviously, but as we head in towards the start of the weekend, the line of showers that is kind of starting to dissipate a little bit will reinvigorate over the Great Lakes, and we'll see how this truly comes to form, but we are watching for some at least midday showers on Saturday. So heading through the rest of our evening, it is nice and clear out there. We start off our Friday, lots of sunshine, a great way to end this fantastic weather week. But as we head into the afternoon, cloud cover does start to settle in, and then you'll see the showers begin in northern Ontario. As they make their way across the Great Lake through Friday evening, again, we're not looking at much in the way here in the GTA. It's as we step into Saturday morning, a pretty strong line of showers. We'll again keep an eye on this as we head throughout the day tomorrow, but that's how we start the day. And then as we head into the midpoints, like kind of around the lunch hour, still spotty showers, but into the late afternoon, early evening, a lot of this is gone. So if you have Saturday night plans that are outside, you should be all right. Just a little cloud cover holds on. We are going to see some cooler air start to push its way down as the jet stream starts to kind of retreat a little bit. And we'll see temperatures trending a little closer to seasonal as we head in towards next week. Temperature-wise, though, through your Friday, Saturday, Sunday, still in that mid-20s kind of sweet spot when it comes to the temperatures. And overnight, between about 16 and 19. So still pretty warm for those overnight lows. Getting in towards our Sunday, we start to watch kind of fall really take place as we see the fall equinox begin just after the lunch hour. And then we step in towards Monday with that sunshine still holding on. Another round of showers likely as we see that system fully push out, and maybe another one kind of starting to build, but we're cooling down a little bit. I don't want to say cold because the seasonal norm this time of year is around 20 degrees. So we really kind of just drop back to where we should be for this time of year, but it's short-lived, and we start to creep back up as we head in towards the end of next week. So if you're a fan of the cooler fall weather, I don't have great news for you unless you really are keeping an eye on Tuesday and Wednesday, but we are settling into the end of the month quite nicely. Michelle, I'll send things back to you.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks.
Also tonight, meeting the medical need to create space to help prepare patients for cancer treatment. The real estate community comes together to build more isolation rooms.
Imagine spending 100 days in a small room with not even a bathroom or shower. That's what patients waiting for a bone marrow transplant must do.
Here's our health reporter Pauline Chan on one effort to make those 100 days more comfortable.
That's our back wall. That luxurious little element is my bed.
6 years ago, Ava Hainschwang, then age 10, had to spend 100 days in an isolation room to prepare for a bone marrow transplant as treatment for her leukemia.
And it was to keep me safe and away from infection so I could actually, the bone marrow transplant would take.
Ava's parents would take turns staying with her for 3 days at a time.
I would do tally marks every day that I was there till I got out. Lots of coloring, lots of crafts.
And not seeing her younger brother Cohen, who was her bone marrow donor, was the hardest part.
She had been so positive through the whole thing, and to see her lose her spirit, it was really challenging.
There's barely enough room for an IV pole, so there's not even a bathroom. So I had to use called a commode. It's basically a wheelchair that you go to the bathroom in.
Realtor Sherry Dabier has family that went through the same situation.
Knowing that what people go through in these rooms, that they're not the greatest to stay for families, so we decided to move forward with this.
This is a fundraiser, BMT versus 100 Days, organized by the real estate community to build new isolation rooms at the Hospital for Sick Children.
It was pretty much Ava that decided she wanted to be an ambassador and sort of give back as much as she can and raise awareness and funds.
They've already completed one room of the 15 on the wing.
Eventually, we'd like to, I know they're talking about updating the ventilation on the ward as well so that the patients can actually leave their rooms and move around.
Ava's parents say the treatment they received was terrific, and having more comfortable surroundings just helps the patients and families feel better during a challenging time. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
A new report suggests increasing cancer rates among adults under 50 could be driven in part by increases in alcohol consumption. The findings were shared by the American Association for Cancer Research. The report says the overall death rate for cancer dropped 33% between 1991 to 2021, but that figure comes with some exceptions. They include a rise in early onset colorectal cancer, in part because of excessive alcohol consumption. Other types included neck, liver, stomach, head, and breast cancers.
Sick Kids has been recognized as one of the top 2 children's hospitals on the planet in a new ranking. Newsweek and Statista compiled data on hundreds of hospitals, including responses from tens of thousands of medical professionals on their areas of expertise. In the pediatrics category, sick kids ranked second in the world for the 2025 summary, just behind Boston Children's Hospital. Sick Kids said the result is a testament to the dedication, expertise, excellence, and drive of its staff. The hospital has placed in the top 2 spots for 4 years in a row.
As Taylor Swift fans scour the internet for tickets to her upcoming Toronto shows, they're also booking accommodations.
I'll be your host this evening. My name is Taylor, and welcome to the Eras Tour.
Airbnb says Toronto's seen a 450% surge in searches for stays during Swift's stretch at the Rogers Centre in November. That's compared to the same period last year. Booking numbers were highest among visitors from Calgary, Winnipeg, Montreal, Edmonton, and Ottawa. Meanwhile, Toronto is the biggest source of Airbnb demand for Swift shows in Vancouver.
And there's exciting news to share with you this evening. If you're a Metallica fan, the Rockers are extending their M72 World Tour into a 3rd year with plans to hit North America next spring. Toronto in particular will get what the band calls a no-repeat weekend in April with 2 different set lists and support lineups.
After the break, rapidly responding to the thousands of people impacted by natural disasters around the world. A local aid organization prepares to help those on the front lines.
Holding court with the Hulk.
Lou Ferrigno, the original Hulk, will be here, and we'll catch up with him ahead of his appearance at Hamilton Comic-Con.
CP24 Breakfast, where Toronto gets its everything every morning.
Cannot confirm whether this 3rd individual was responsible for the death of Ibrahim or Deshaun, but we do know he was one of the shooters involved.
Updating our top stories, police are looking for the public's help in finding this man, believed to be involved in Tuesday's double homicide near Jane and Driftwood. The victims have been identified as 26-year-old Ibrahim Handul and 27-year-old Deshaun Walters.
They don't have any love for us. They don't have any protection for us. They don't have any concern concerning us.
Community members spoke out today after a recent series of shootings. They're calling for more action on gun violence. Community members say along with cracking down on youth violence, more needs to be done to give opportunities to young people.
Pre-pandemic, we were serving across the city about 60,000 client visits per month. That number last month was 350,000, and that is just Toronto.
As we approach Thanksgiving, the Daily Bread Food Bank says the need is greater than ever. The food bank CEO says they hope to raise $4.6 million and 200,000 pounds of food by the end of October. It's estimated 1 in 10 people in the city of Toronto is food insecure.
Remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video breaking news, let us know.
U.S. and Canadian stocks climbed to record highs today after America's Federal Reserve moved decisively to prop up the economy. Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg brings us the latest in business.
Hello there. North American stocks hit new all-time highs today. Investors were encouraged by yesterday's bold Federal Reserve decision to cut interest rates by a full 0.5 percentage point. Low rates make dividend-paying stocks more attractive, and they are a boost for the real estate sector. Toronto's index of real estate stocks has jumped 24% in the past 3 months. The benchmark Toronto index is up almost 14% so far this year, while the U.S. S&P 500 is ahead nearly 20%. TD Bank CEO Bharat Masrani will retire in April as the bank grapples with U.S. investigations into lapses in money laundering controls. He'll be succeeded by Raymond Chun, 55 years old, who's currently head of TD's Canadian retail division. Scotia says, quote, "We view this as a signal that the anti-money laundering issues are likely to be resolved soon." But it added that many investors thought the bank would pick an outsider. And finally, a move by Walmart could turn into a threat to the fees that banks pocket on consumer purchases. Walmart customers in the US will soon have the option to pay directly from their bank accounts with instant transfers for online purchases. Bloomberg says this reflects escalating tensions between merchants and banks and card networks over fees for payment processing. On the markets, the Canadian dollar changed hands at 73.76 US cents, up 1/3 cent. West Texas Intermediate oil was at $71.16, up $1.28. Our latest fix on Western Canadian Select oil, $55.24, up a cent. And the TSX Composite closed at its new high of 23,866.27, up just under 274 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Overall, it's been a great summer here in the city, but it's been a brutal season in terms of natural disasters across the globe.
A Toronto-based humanitarian relief organization is once again taking part in efforts to respond and assist those in impacted areas. We were at the Global Medic headquarters in Etobicoke today, where members of the group and volunteers were hard at work packing up supplies to help respond to out-of-control wildfires in Bolivia. The country has seen at least 7.5 million acres burn this year and is called for international aid. Global Medic says it's ready to offer assistance from the air by mapping the disaster area with drones and on the ground.
We're providing fire skid units like the one over my shoulder in that pickup truck. So that's just a tank. It's mounted on a skid. There's a pump and a hose. As you can see, it turns a pickup truck like that into a fire truck. So at a time when there's a national emergency declared and they need all help, we're giving them all the help we can.
Global Medic is also sending aid to Jamaica after Hurricane Beryl in July. And assistance is en route to Poland as Central Europe deals with some of the worst flooding it's seen in decades.
In sports, the Toronto Blue Jays played the finale of their series in Texas this afternoon, trying to avoid a sweep.
Guerrero, Horwitz, and Schneider due up here in the seventh. As Guerrero gets one in the air, deep down the left field line, and gone.
The Jays went up 3-0 on Vladimir Guerrero's 29th home run of the season. He would get his 30th in the 9th inning, leading Toronto to a 4-0 shutout of the Rangers. The Jays begin a 3-game series in Tampa tomorrow.
But the Jays will be without Bo Bichette for the rest of the season. The shortstop was placed on the 10-day injured list with a broken finger on his right hand. It happened when he was taking ground balls yesterday. Bichette returned for just one game on Tuesday after being out more than 8 weeks with a calf injury.
Meanwhile, the Toronto Maple Leafs held their first on-ice sessions today as training camp gets underway. There are a number of new faces on the team and a new head coach. The Buds kick off their season in Montreal on October 9th. This Sunday, they face off against Ottawa at Scotiabank Arena in the first of 6 preseason games.
To basketball, where former Raptor Vince Carter will have his number 15 retired by the Brooklyn Nets. The ceremony will happen prior to the team's home game against Miami, January 25th. The Nets say Carter is an important part of their franchise's history. He's a member of the Hall of Fame's class of 2024.
Just ahead on CTV News, 4 Ontario restaurants get the ultimate recognition. A coveted Michelin star will tell you which spots are suddenly going to be a lot harder to get a reservation.
Tonight, the Roaring Lions return.
It's priceless. The world needs to see this portrait back at the chateau.
A Canadian treasure stolen and shipped overseas starts its cross-Atlantic homecoming. Later on CTV National News.
The Canadian National Exhibition says attendance numbers in the season that just came to a close surpassed expectations. Organizers had predicted big crowds over the Labor Day weekend would be enough to bring summer attendance figures to around 1.4 million. That followed a slower start to the season with a good dose of rain in the city this summer. In the end, 450,000 visitors stopped by over the final few days, surpassing pre-pandemic figures and bringing the total to just short of 1.5 million attendees this year. The X says it generates an economic impact of approximately $112 million for the GTA each year.
Several restaurants outside Toronto received Michelin stars in the guide's latest report. Hexagon in Oakville received a coveted Michelin star for what the inspector called its refined, original, and substantial dishes. Restaurant Pearl Morissette in Niagara region received both a Michelin star and a Green Star to recognize its leadership in sustainability. The Pine in Creemore was recognized for what was called a distinct dining experience informed by the chef's years working in China. Here in the city, Michelin gave a star to Danico, an Italian restaurant in a former bank building at College and Bathurst.
It was huge from the moment of the award yesterday night. At the event throughout the night and this morning, phone were blowing up with a lot of congratulation email messages. So it was amazing, a lot of support, I would say.
That's our moment, and we need to be sure that we keep those standards, because we can. It is just the beginning of a very big, very long journey.
The region now has 15 restaurants with 1 Michelin star and 1 with 2. Sushi Masaki Saito.
So good, doesn't it?
It's hard to look at food at this time of day because we're starving.
I'm already thinking of dinner. Beautiful evening if you want to eat outside. We're still seeing a really warm night ahead of us. So if you want to get out, sit on a patio. We still have patio weather as we approach the middle of September. And we're looking at the cloud cover staying at bay, at least for now. We head throughout the day tomorrow, and things do change just a little bit. The good news is it stays relatively mild, and temperature-wise, we don't see much of a change. We're still sitting at 25 right now, feeling like 27, and we have a fantastic evening ahead of us if you like the warmer fall weather. Heading in towards Friday, more sunshine, the chance of a few scattered showers midday Saturday, but overall, it's not a bad weekend ahead.
Let the good times roll. Thank you, Jess. Be sure to join Omar Sachedina at 11 tonight for CTV National News. That's followed by Zoraida Allman with your next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jess Smith and the whole team here at CTV News, thanks for watching and have a great night.
I'm hungry now.
I'm dying.